I'm going on a date tomorrow. She said it while buttering toast. Not crying. Not shaking. Just spreading salted butter like nothing in the world was wrong. The knife tapped the crust. Crumbs scattered. My throat went tight. Cool, I said. I don't remember standing up, but the chair screeched behind me. She didn't look up. My coffee was still hot when I poured it down the sink. That felt like control. Small, boiling control in a porcelain mug. I stared at the drain like it was going to give me an answer. She just stood there, behind me, watching the back of my neck like I'd twitch if she blinked too loud. A date. She said it like we weren't married. Like my toothbrush wasn't still wet from last night. Like we didn't have a cat that hated everyone except her. You know what the sickest part is? She waited until I replaced the ceiling fan. I had just finished rewiring it, 5 days ago. New blades, brushed nickel. Took me 4 hours and I bled from my thumb. She knew I was going to fix that damn fan before she said anything. Why do I care about the fan? I don't. I really don't. But it's the way she waited. Like she wanted me to fix the house before she broke it. I left. Didn't grab my wallet. Didn't take my phone. Drove to the lake we never went to. Sat there until my legs went numb. Thought about drowning, but in the metaphorical way. You know? When I got back, she was on the couch. Still in that stupid robe with the little moons on it. She was watching some Scandinavian crime drama with subtitles she never reads. But when she heard the door open, she paused it. She turned to me and said, "You're being dramatic." And that's when I knew. This wasn't her first lie. It was just the first one she let slip. I didn't respond to her. "You're being dramatic," she had said, like I'd just spilled juice on the carpet and made a scene about it. Not like I'd just found out the woman I slept beside for 6.5 years was planning a romantic evening with someone else. She said it like I was the problem. Like the drama was me. Not the betrayal. Not the absurdly casual way she said it while buttering toast. Not the void that suddenly opened beneath everything I thought was stable. I stood there in the doorway, dripping from the lake mist, shoes caked in dirt. The air inside the house was too warm. I hated that the heat was still on. I hated that it smelled like her shampoo. I hated that she looked relaxed. "You don't want to talk about this?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. I didn't want to talk. But not like that. Not like I was a coworker who missed a meeting she'd put on her calendar 2 weeks ago. So I said nothing. I went upstairs. I stepped over the laundry she said she'd fold 3 days ago. I stared at our wedding photo on the hallway shelf and thought about how fake I looked in it. My tie was crooked. I never noticed that before. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, lights off, listening to the sound of her moving around below. She was humming. She only hummed when she was nervous. Or lying. Or both. Around 2 a.m., she went quiet. I waited another hour, then went downstairs barefoot, careful not to step on the squeaky tile by the fridge. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe some proof this was all a misunderstanding. Maybe a note. Maybe just some version of her that still cared if I was hurting. What I found was her laptop. Open. Logged in. A tab still minimized on the corner of the screen. I shouldn't have clicked it. I know. Boundaries, privacy, trust, all that crap. But screw it. She said she had a date. That word obliterates all rules. It was a private browser window. Messages. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. And not just with one guy. 3 names stood out. Julian Seedling, Arturo, from class, and Dax. Dax. Seriously? I started reading. Julian was sweet. He sent her poetry. Called her Starglow. Said he missed her voice. Arturo was the bold one. He joked about sneaking her away during her lunch break. Talked about that night they were almost caught. And Dax. Dax was disgusting. Explicit. Detailed. The kind of messages that made my stomach cramp. She replied to all of them. Lovingly. Eagerly. Like they were real. Like I was the one she was cheating on with them. I scrolled. Numb. My heart beating too slow and too loud at the same time. Each message peeled back another layer I didn't know existed. Another lie. Another stolen moment. And then I saw it. A draft she never sent. Not to me. Not to them. Just sitting there in her notes app, time-stamped 4 days ago. When he finds out, I'll just say I told him. He's too soft to leave. That's what she wrote. Not he deserves the truth. Not I feel guilty. Just a calculated prediction that I'd be too broken, too soft, to walk away. She was right. For now. But not for long. The next morning, I moved into the guest room. I didn't announce it. I didn't pack dramatically or slam the door or cry. I just picked up my pillow, a spare blanket, and my phone charger, and walked down the hall like a ghost moving out of a body. The door clicked shut behind me like punctuation. She didn't follow. Maybe she expected it. Maybe she'd already planned for it. The guest room is barely a room. It's where we keep the boxes we never unpacked from our last move, photos we didn't hang, books neither of us finished, her old violin case that hasn't been opened since 2018. It still smells like cardboard and unused air. There's one small window that looks out at the fence. No sunlight ever makes it in. It's perfect for hiding from things. That day was quiet. Too quiet. No accusations. No attempts to explain. She made coffee like nothing happened. Wore her fuzzy socks. Opened the blinds. She even asked if I wanted eggs. I didn't answer. Just stared at her like she was a hologram glitching slightly out of sync. She had the nerve to hum again. That same low tune. Something wordless and eerily calm, like she was comforting herself. Around noon, she left the house. Didn't say where she was going. Didn't ask if I needed anything. Just grabbed her keys, put on lipstick at noon on a Wednesday, and left. Like she didn't have a husband in the guest room she used to call her best friend. That's when I remembered the other iPad. It was buried in the hallway closet, wrapped in an old hoodie, from the year she briefly wanted to be a digital artist. I had factory reset it back then, but I'm not a moron. I knew she reused passwords, and she never believed in two-factor anything. In less than 5 minutes, I was in. She hadn't used that device in months. Maybe more. But the iCloud sync was still active. I wasn't even looking for messages this time. I was done torturing myself with poetry from men named Dax. No, I was looking for answers. Instead, I found a list titled, What I Want to Feel Again. I wish I could tell you it was a journal entry. Something therapeutic, honest, raw. But no, this was strategic. Labeled, numbered, almost emotionless. Like a business plan for heartbreak. The thrill of being pursued. Conversations that don't revolve around trash schedules. Someone who listens without looking tired. New hands. Secrets. That last one, secrets, sat there like it had its own heartbeat. She missed secrets. I read that line over and over until the text blurred. Not because I was crying. I wasn't. I just stopped blinking. I kept picturing her sitting on the couch, writing that list. Calm. Collected. Maybe sipping wine. Maybe smiling. I bet she thought it was poetic. It wasn't. It was cruel. And worse, it was deliberate. She didn't stumble into infidelity. She didn't trip over a mistake and land in someone else's arms. No. She wanted this. Designed it. Bit by bit. She cut tiny holes in our marriage and waited for the air to leak out. But here's the part she didn't expect. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to work on it. Not this time. I was going to become a ghost in my own house. Watch. Listen. Record. And when the truth finally snapped her illusion in half, I was going to be the one standing still. She forgot one important thing about soft men. We bruise slowly, but we remember everything. It was the kind of message that made my spine lock. I was still in the guest room, still pretending I had some kind of plan, when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. I'd been ghosting most people since the day she said, I have a date. But this one didn't come from someone in my contacts. Just a name, Savannah B. And a profile picture of a blurry beach. No mutual friends. No context. The message was simple. 7 words. You don't know the whole story, Emery. At first, I thought it was spam. Or maybe some scammy bot trying to mess with the emotionally vulnerable. Like they crawl through Reddit confessions and DM heartbroken men to sell them healing crystals. But then a second message popped in. She was seeing him before the app. Now that got my attention. I stared at my screen, heart suddenly slow and heavy. My first thought was denial. Savannah who? What kind of weird joke was this? But something in me knew. Deep in that gut sense place that never lies. This was real. And whoever this woman was, she knew something. So I replied, Who are you? Typing stopped. Typing again. Then finally, I shouldn't be messaging you. But I saw what she posted. She blocked me last month. I'm not trying to start anything. I just thought you should know she's been lying longer than you think. My blood ran cold. I tried to stay calm, keep the reply short. Who is he? There was a pause. Long enough to make my fingers ache from gripping the phone too tight. Then she dropped the name. Malcolm. And that name, it hit like a bell in the back of my skull. Because I knew a Malcolm. But I didn't know that Malcolm. Or at least, I didn't think I did. Savannah sent me one more message, unprompted. A screenshot. It was cropped, blurry, clearly something she'd saved in a panic before Odette shut her out. A Facebook comment thread, hidden on a post I never would have seen. Odette under a pseudonym account, replying to someone named M. Something about missing weekends in the mountains. Something about not being able to wait much longer. A red heart, a smiley face, and a single, haunting reply from him. Soon. He won't matter by then. That was 3 weeks ago. I sat there frozen, hands sweating, stomach folding in on itself like a dying star. I reread that line 5 times. He won't matter. He won't matter. Was that me? Was I the disposable placeholder in their story? For months, I thought I was watching my wife fall apart. I thought I was the outsider to her grief or confusion or whatever midlife crack was opening under her. But no, she wasn't crumbling. She was building. Constructing a second life brick by brick and planning, at some point, to bury me under the foundation. And now I knew his name. Malcolm, a name I had heard once, in passing, back in April. A friend from her old internship. She mentioned him offhandedly during a casual story about some podcast they both liked. Nothing about it felt loaded back then. But now that I replay it in my head, I realize she looked down when she said his name. She never looks down unless she's hiding something. I didn't respond to Savannah again. I didn't thank her. I didn't even ask for more. Because I knew she'd already said too much. I also knew that if Odette found out I was talking to someone from her other life, she'd shut it all down. So I made a decision. No more guessing. No more hoping she'd tell me the truth. I was going to look Malcolm in the eyes. Face to face. No more middlemen. No more apps. No more screens. And if I found what I suspected, if I saw confirmation in his posture, in his tone, in the way he talked about my wife, then I'd finally know how far this had really gone. But I wasn't ready for what I'd find when I met him. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about something worse. Something planned. The hardest part wasn't finding him. It was pretending I wasn't trembling while I did. It took me less than an hour. He worked at a small community college 2 towns over, something in communications, probably the kind of job where no one really knows what you do and no one asks. His public profile was boring. Buttoned up. But buried in the tags of a faculty hiking trip photo, I saw the truth. Odette had liked the post months ago, under her real name. No burner. No fake account. Just her, right there, hiding in plain sight. And there he was. Malcolm, mid-40s. Tall, balding, but owning it. That too-perfect middle-aged confidence that only exists in men who've never actually lost anything. He had the kind of smile you could mistake for gentle, until you noticed how it didn't reach his eyes. I rehearsed what I'd say at least 50 times before I drove out there. I pictured every scenario, him denying it, laughing in my face, trying to act like a victim. I even considered, for a single, burning second, what I'd do if he apologized. Genuinely. With guilt in his eyes. But deep down, I knew he wouldn't. Because a man like that doesn't apologize. He calculates. He waits. And he takes. I waited for him outside the faculty building. Neutral territory. No dramatic ambush. Just a man with too many questions and not enough sleep. He spotted me before I even said his name. Which means she warned him. He hesitated, then walked up anyway. Not nervous. Not confused. Just slightly amused. That's the word. He looked amused. "You're Emery," he said. No question mark. Just a statement. Like he'd been briefed. "And you're Malcolm," I replied. My voice cracked on the L. I hated that. He nodded. "Look. Don't," I cut in. "Don't look. Don't talk. Just listen." He shrugged. "All right." I stood there for a long second, trying to gather the 1,000 knives in my chest into one clean blade. I couldn't. I never was good with confrontation. I don't yell. I don't threaten. I just sink. I collapse inward. So I did what I do best. I spoke slowly. "How long?" He blinked. That same amused glint in his eyes. "You want the real answer, or the one she gave you?" My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. "The real one." He looked away briefly, then back at me. 8 months. 8. That number hit harder than I thought it would. 8 months. That's Thanksgiving. That's our anniversary. That's the trip to her parents where she clung to my arm like we were newlyweds again. All of it fake. 8 months of lies. 8 months of me being the placeholder. "She said you were distant," he added, like that justified it. "Were you sleeping with her then?" He didn't flinch. "Every time she told you she had a work dinner." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My whole body went cold. But listen, he continued, like this was a performance review and not a confession. She's not evil. She's just exhausted. You didn't see it. You probably thought things were fine. But she was drowning, man. And I was the only one who noticed. I laughed. Actually laughed. A short, bitter thing that made my throat feel like sandpaper. You're not her rescue. You're her exit plan. He opened his mouth to reply, but I turned before he could speak. I walked away. I got in my car and sat there for a long time. No music. No crying. No yelling. Just silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel, and I realized I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel replaced. I felt erased. And I wasn't going to let that happen quietly. I knew something he didn't. Because Odette hadn't deleted everything. And buried deep in our shared storage was a folder labeled Archives, filled with voicemails, pictures, and one screen recording of a FaceTime call with a man who wasn't Malcolm. A third man. This wasn't love. This wasn't even infidelity. This was a project. And I had just found the blueprint. The folder wasn't even hidden. That's the part that messed with me the most. It wasn't buried under some obscure file name or locked behind a password she thought I'd never guess. No, it was just there, sitting in our shared cloud drive. Right between our wedding photos and the receipts for the IKEA couch we built in matching pajamas 2 years ago. Archives. All caps. Like it mattered. Like it was curated. I thought maybe it was work-related at first. Odette used to do digital strategy for a nonprofit, and she always kept old projects just in case. But when I opened the folder, the first thing I saw was a thumbnail of her face, frozen mid-laugh, lit by a phone screen, eyes locked on someone I couldn't see. It was a screen recording, labeled, Deck, Alex call number 4. Alex. Not Julian. Not Dax. Not even Malcolm. This was someone else. Someone I'd never heard of. My stomach twisted. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button like it was a trigger. But I pressed it. The video opened to a FaceTime call already in progress. Her voice, high and excited, filled the room like it didn't belong to the same person who'd said, I'm going on a date, with butter on her fingers. I missed your voice today, she said. The man on the other end, Alex, presumably, was older, gray at the temples, wearing a lab coat, of all things. Not a metaphor. A literal white lab coat, like he had stepped out of a pharmaceutical ad. He didn't speak right away, just smiled. Warmly. Too warmly. I thought about you all day, he said eventually. You looked perfect in that blue thing. The one you wore when you told him you were sick. She laughed. He believed it. He. Me. I was he. They were talking about me like I was a plot device. The video continued. Her tone changed. She lowered her voice and leaned closer to the screen. Did you start processing the second batch yet? She asked. Alex nodded. 2 of them. But I'm still reviewing the emotional splits. We need more inconsistency. The control subject's still too stable. What about sleep tracking? She asked. Did the markers shift after exposure? Significantly. Especially when we use the message delay tactic. He's not reading them immediately anymore, which means it's working. I stopped the video. I didn't pause. I didn't scrub. I stopped it. Because this wasn't an affair. This was a goddamn experiment. I sat back, heart thudding like I'd run up 5 flights of stairs. My brain was moving too fast to keep up with. Markers. Splits. Exposure. Control subject. Emotional tracking. They weren't just cheating on me. They were studying me. I scrolled through the folder. Dozens of files. Notes. Clips. Labeled timelines. Some tagged with my name. Others with initials I didn't recognize. A few just had emojis. Red circles. Green check marks. It was a catalog. And I was in it. One video showed me sleeping, taken from our bedroom doorway, the camera angle tilted like she was trying not to be seen. Another was audio only. Me reading aloud from a grocery list she'd left on the fridge, as if even my casual muttering had value to their twisted little archive. This was surveillance. This was design. Whatever Malcolm thought he was part of, he wasn't even the endgame. And Odette? She wasn't just cheating. She was compiling a portfolio of me. A database of my mental unraveling. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking. I don't remember standing up. I just know that when I finally looked in the mirror across from the guest bed, I didn't recognize myself. I looked, harvested, stripped down, reduced to behavior patterns and time-stamped reactions. I wasn't Emery. I was Subject 5B, or whatever they call me in their files. I wanted to confront her right then, But something in me snapped, not in rage, but in restraint. Because if they were tracking my reactions, they were still watching. And the only thing more dangerous than being watched is letting them think you don't know. The next morning, I made her coffee. 2 sugars. Almond milk. The way she liked it before she started pretending she didn't like sweet things anymore. She was already at the dining table when I brought it over, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong, like I wasn't a cracked open version of myself holding a mug I used to call ours. She looked up, surprised. "Thanks," she said, eyebrows lifting just slightly, like she was checking to see if I was glitching. I smiled back. Not too much, just enough to register as functional. I sat across from her and asked, "Sleep okay?" She nodded. "Weird dreams." I didn't ask what they were. I knew I was probably in them. Because now, I was watching her the way she'd been watching me. Every blink, every hesitation, every time her finger hovered over her screen a moment too long, it all became data. If she had been logging my descent into confusion, then I was going to record her unraveling in return. The difference was, I'd know when to hit record. I went back into the folder that night, this time with gloves on. Not literally, but emotionally. I was numb, deliberate, methodical. I downloaded everything to a separate external drive, encrypted and hidden in the old cereal box I kept under the guest bed, the one I pretended was still full of tax receipts. What I found next changed the strategy entirely. There was a document named spiraling_triggers_final. It was a checklist, a literal script, laid out like lab work. Phase 1, disruption, passive withdrawal, delay in replies, remove shared activities. Phase 2, disorientation, suggest therapy for them, gaslight memories, mention dreams with others. Phase 3, fracture, introduce third-party interest, control jealousy. Phase 4, extraction, encourage detachment, observe, confirm detachment before disengaging. My name wasn't in this doc, but the timestamps were, and they matched the days I remembered fighting over nothing. The nights she cried without reason. The weeks she told me I didn't laugh anymore, when all I was doing was trying to breathe. This wasn't chaos. This was a system. She had followed a script, and I had played my role. But here's where their plan collapsed. They forgot that even the most fragile man still has a limit. That numbness is a type of silence that can grow teeth. And they underestimated one thing. I remember everything they did, and I never stopped listening. I started creating my own log. Not out of revenge, not yet, but because I needed to know how deep this really went. I left the external drive plugged into the back of the TV, hidden, taped beneath the cable box. She never watched TV in the guest room. Too sad, she once said. That room was for overflow, for the leftovers of our life. Now it was my lab, and I became very careful with my reactions. I started scripting my own moods. Smiles when I wanted to scream. Indifference when I wanted to collapse. Short conversations. Polite glances. No confrontation. And she noticed. Within days, she changed. She started hovering around me more, like I was the mystery now. She peeked into the guest room twice in one day, something she hadn't done in weeks. She asked if I wanted to talk sometime soon. She even suggested a walk. A walk. As if we were neighbors and not a collapsing marriage. I told her maybe next weekend. She laughed, a little too loud. That's fine. Just wanted to check in. No one who's innocent checks in like that. I knew what was happening. She didn't like not knowing what I was thinking. That was her fuel, reactions, wounds, confusion. But now I was giving her none. And it scared her. She didn't realize I'd flipped the script. I was still sleeping in the guest room, still eating quietly, still playing the role. But I was also collecting voice memos, screenshots, timestamps, locations. I watched her car leave the house at the same exact time 3 nights in a row. I didn't ask where she went. I just logged it. They wanted data? Let me give them data. The version of me they built their experiment around. That soft, stuttering man they thought they could control. He's gone. Not dead. Just off-grid. Replaced. Still breathing. Still blinking. But now writing his own version of the story. She doesn't know yet, but I already have my exit. And not just from the marriage. From the trap. From their system. And when I leave, I'm taking everything with me. The recordings, the lists, the smiling confession from Malcolm, the blueprint they sketched on my back while calling it love. This story doesn't end with me asking why she did it. It ends with her realizing I knew before she finished doing it. I left on a Tuesday morning. Not in a rage. Not in tears. Not with a suitcase bursting at the seams or a dramatic note taped to the mirror. Just quietly. Precisely. Like a breath I'd been holding for too long, finally released. The kind of leaving you only get to do once, when the exit isn't just physical, but emotional. Soul deep. She was asleep upstairs, tangled in our old blanket. The one I used to pull over her at night when she fell asleep reading. I didn't wake her. I didn't need to. I wasn't hers anymore. My bag was already packed. Not with much. I didn't want to take the life we built. It wasn't real anymore. Just clothes, the drive, a journal I started the day she said, I have a date, and a Polaroid photo of me from 10 years ago. Back when I smiled with my eyes and didn't worry about passwords or apps or the sound of silence between two people who used to know each other. I left the house key on the kitchen counter, right beside her favorite mug. I almost wrote a letter. I had even drafted one, but it felt hollow. She wouldn't hear it the way it was meant. So instead, I left a single sentence printed on a small, folded card. The subject is no longer available. No anger. Just truth. I drove for hours that day. No GPS. Just coastlines and music and gas station coffee that tasted better than anything I'd had in that house for months. Every mile I put between us felt like skin growing back. I played old songs I used to love before she told me they were too moody. I opened the windows and let the wind tangle my hair. I didn't check my phone once. Somewhere between the edge of town and the start of wherever I was going, I felt it. That thing people talk about in books, but you never believe until it happens. A release. A lightness. Like I'd stepped outside of someone else's movie and remembered I'd had my own story all along. I stayed with an old college friend for a while. Levi. Someone I'd lost touch with when I became a husband first and a person second. He didn't ask many questions. Just gave me a couch, a beer, and a pair of socks that didn't match. That night, we talked until 3 a.m. about everything but her. And for the first time in years, I laughed without checking if someone else was upset about it. I sent Savannah one final message. Not for closure, not for drama. Just, thank you. You told the truth when no one else did. She never replied. And that's okay. As for Odette, she emailed me a week later. No subject line. Just, where are you? You can't just vanish. That's not fair. But I could. And I did. Fair didn't live in that house anymore. I never responded. She doesn't get the ending. Not this time. Instead, I started over. I took a part-time job at a used bookstore near the coast. The kind that smells like dust and dreams. I journaled every night. I joined a chess club I was always too embarrassed to try. I didn't tell anyone my story, not yet. I just let it live in the silence. Quiet healing. Honest air. And slowly, day by day, I remembered how to breathe without asking permission. Because freedom isn't loud. It's not fireworks or declarations or courtroom revenge. Sometimes, freedom is just the sound of your own name, spoken by someone who finally means it again. You.